We're going to talk about Roy Hodgson. Sam, in the back of the mail this morning,
Yeah.
Roy endgame, Palace set to sack Hodgson with the Austrian boss in the frame.
Yeah.
They've got a bit of a job in their hands at the moment, Crystal Palace, haven't they? We're just about to go into March. The managerial situation, not what they would want it to be.
Yeah.
And they are, and I know you don't think so, but they are fighting for their Premier League existence.
Oh, yeah, they're in a scrap. I mean, they're not sucked right in there, but they're on the periphery of it and they're close to it. And I've always said that that Roy Hodgson will inevitably depart at the end of the season. If they've got somebody else in mind and they can deliver this person, then why not get on with it? The challenge is that he will encounter the same problems that Roy Hodgson is encountering, is that creatively, without Elise and without Eze, they lack the ability to be able to create opportunities to score goals. Now, the fans have had their say, and I don't think they're really going particularly after Roy Hodgson. They're going after the owners and suggesting that they haven't made the right decisions at the right times. And we can debate that if we want to. The point is that they won't be sacking, Parish and his mob won't be sacking Roy Hodgson because they're bowing to fan pressure.
Yeah.
They'll be sacking Roy Hodgson because they think they're in jeopardy.
Very shortly, we're going to hear more about the man who reportedly is in the frame, the fellow that used to work at Eintracht Frankfurt. We'll get to that very shortly, Oliver Glasner, and get some kind of an impression of what he's like from Konstantin Eckner, German broadcaster. But the Mail tells us this morning, Palace set to call time in Roy's second reign in charge. It remains to be seen, Sammy Muckbill tells us, if he's sacked before Monday's clash at Everton. But a decision has been taken to make a change before the end of the season amid major discontent from supporters. Simon's take on that in a second. I caught up a short time ago with the versatile Palace player Jeffrey Schlupp, and the topic of Roy came up.
I've been involved in similar situations, and I think everyone knows Roy has obviously been in probably these situations more than I have. He knows what's needed. Everyone's obviously, we're still together. You can see that with our performance against Chelsea. You know, up until the last couple of minutes of the game, everyone's fighting for each other and pulling for each other, and I'm sure we'll be fine. You know, but it's obviously it's always a dangerous thing to say. You know, in previous years, teams have gone down that have had better teams, better players than they've shown in the season. But again, you know, we've got the quality, but I think it's time to sort of get a bit dirty and grind some results out before the quality then shows.
Simon, he says we've got to get down and dirty if we're going to do anything. Let's hear about the man they're talking about. If indeed Roy is moving and this fella is coming in, the man who's being spoken about now as Roy's successor, former Eintracht Frankfurt manager Oliver Glasner. As I said, Konstantin Eckner, German broadcaster, joins us live. Konstantin, good morning to you. Tell us about Glasner. What do you know?
I mean, he was quite successful, at least at Eintracht Frankfurt, winning the Europa League in 2022. He comes from the Red Bull school of football. I mean, he's born in Salzburg, and he also played there and coached there. So you can see some of these RB Leipzig Red Bull traits in his game: high press, intensity, counter-attacking style. Usually that's why Frankfurt was so successful in the Europa League, because they were usually the underdogs against Barcelona and West Ham United. And they were not so successful in the Bundesliga, because they're against the weaker sides, you need to have the ball at times, which didn't really suit Oliver Glasner's game. I mean, you guys might then can assess if his style suits Crystal Palace. I guess so, yes. I think the biggest concern right now is that in his final year at Frankfurt, before that he was kind of known as level-headed, as someone who can get along with the players, but he became quite erratic when things didn't go his way, and things got a little bit dicey at times, and he lashed out at the media and at everyone, basically. So there might be some concern how he deals with pressure.
Ah, I see. And just in the passing, is what is being reported here in some quarters the same as is being reported over where you are, Konstantin, that he is the front runner and is set to take over if indeed Hodgson goes in the coming hours?
Yeah, he has become the front runner. That's also been reported, because there was a three-man list, three names: Lopetegui, McKenna, and Glasner. And Glasner was not at the very top of that list. That's also been reported, and I know that that's actually for a fact. So what I also know is that Glasner and his agent in particular, ever since he left Frankfurt and he wanted to get another job, his agent has tried to get Glasner a landing spot in the Premier League, because Glasner believes that he could do quite well in England, and he's kind of fascinated by the Premier League. I mean, why not? Understandably so. So yeah, that's it might make sense in a way. Of course, there are times when Glasner won the Europa League, he was linked with Chelsea and these kind of clubs, and of course, I mean, Crystal Palace, and not the same tier. But of course, his reputation has faded.
Okay.
Why did he get fired, Constantine?
Essentially, yes. I mean, they just agreed that he has to leave at the end of the season. So, but that was agreed upon before the end of the season. There was at a time when they didn't win a lot of matches, and when people at Frankfurt just became irritated by his behavior.
I see. I mean, Simon, it's been reported the co-owner at Palace, John Textor, understood to be pushing the merits of Glasner. I mean, Glasner had talks with Palace last time around when it was considered the best way forward is to carry on with Roy, and they did. So he's known to them. He's familiar to them in more ways than one.
Yeah, I mean, and most of the Premier League sides, when they're looking around Europe and looking at other managers, most managers aren't a secret, and this is a guy that's won the European Conference League, so they'll be visible to clubs in England. It's an interesting time for the manager, because a lot of these guys, and I want to see Constantine's view on this, don't want to come in and pick up the problems from someone else at a time in the season when they don't have any ability to change it because the transfer windows have come and gone, and they don't really want to be attached to something that ultimately may be a problem for them. Do you think this guy will take a job now if this job is there to be offered, Constantine?
I think there was a time when he wouldn't have taken that job, just because his position was much, much better. Coming, after that Europa League win with a lot of steam into the next season, there were rumors that he was linked to several clubs, basically, and that's when Chelsea and West Ham were linked with him and were linked to him. But right now, what I know is that he increasingly, not getting desperate, but wanting to get a next job, because he has been out of a job for a while now, and he's not a workaholic, but he's someone who wants to work and is happy to work and is on the training pitch every day and wants to put in the work. So being out of a job, he doesn't like it. He's also not at an age where he wants to take long breaks. He's in his 40s, so he wants to be a coach, and that's why that job might be much, much more intriguing than it would have been a while ago.
Sure thing. Constantine, thank you very much indeed. Not for the first time, Constantine Ettner bringing us up to date with what's going on out in Germany, in his part of the world. Simon, it would seem to me that the sensible money is that he's going to come in. He's going to come in before the end of the season, certainly in the coming days.
Yeah, I mean, again, the question was, do I think Palace will get relegated if Roy Hodgson stays? Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah,
you softened a bit on that.
No, I don't think they'll get relegated. I think on the balance of probability, I think they've just got about enough to get past it. I know that they're struggling, but I also look back on the recent weeks and some of the games that they've played in, with the exception of the Brighton game. I know the Palace fans are saying you're not watching enough of it, Simon, and that team is poor to watch.
Yeah.
But they have gotten a lot of draws and games where you would not potentially expect them to have got a draw. Look, Palace, if they've decided to make a change and they've got a candidate, I'm always in the camp. It's really easy to fire somebody. It's much more difficult to hire. If you believe, and the situation with Roy Hodgson is a different one than a traditional manager, because you know he's going at the end of the season. So what are you trading water for? You might as well make a decision. And if you've got the manager in place that you believe is going to fix the problems both now and in the future, make the decision.
Make the decision. Simon, lots of messages coming in saying Palace find themselves in this situation because, and I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 messages, and there's one I'll home in on. He's a Brighton fan. Don't flare up at me about that. But he said, Jim, I'm a Brighton fan, and I know you'll find this amusing, but Palace are still finding their way after losing their talisman, Wolf Zaha. He said, the day and hour someone like he goes, then it's a day that everyone dreads because everything changes. We feel that way about Lewis Dunk. Has he got a point?
I think that the introduction of Eze was always a natural successor, to some extent, to Zaha. So the fact that Eze's been injured for a significant proportion of the season, and Elise too, are the two component parts that have made it much more difficult than it should be for Palace.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.